everybody. We'll just wait for a few more people to join and then we'll get started. Hi, everyone. We have a few more people trickling in. I'm just going to give it another minute or two, and then I will introduce Molly and we can get started. Thanks. If you did not receive an email from me earlier today with a PDF attachment, please let me know in the chat and I can forward you the information that I sent earlier today. Looks like we have a critical mass here and it's 5 minutes after the hour, so I'm gonna get started. if you're ready, Molly, obviously. You're the star today.
I'm definitely ready. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, absolutely. Mm.
Awesome.
Okay. And just so everybody knows, this is being recorded so that we can have it on our social media or elsewhere, so that if you'd like to review it again, or if you want to share it with somebody that you think might also be helped by Molly's insights, you'll be able to do that. Just as a brief introduction, my name is Stephanie Brochard. I'm an associate at Plunkett Cooney in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, and I work in the insurance coverage practice group. I obviously know some of you here, and thanks so much for coming. I'm also the immediate past president for the Women's Bar Association, which is the Oakland region of the Women Lawyers Association of Michigan, covering Oakland County, Lapeer County, and Genesee County. So welcome, and thank you so much for being here today for this lunch and learn with the billing coach, Molly Kremer. I will also put in the chat, in case you are not already a member of the Women Lawyers Association of Michigan, I'll put information in the chat about how to join. Just like this event, we have a lot of in-person and also online events for our membership. We have regions, the WLAM has regions all over the state. Obviously, we are here in the Southeast Michigan area. And so I'll put that information in the chat. And I believe, Molly, and correct me if I'm wrong, we will also have some time for questions at the end. If anyone has any questions, you can either put them in the chat, or you can, raise your hand, however you'd like to work it. That's great. So to introduce Molly, I came across your information, I don't know, now it was a few months ago, I think. I'm someone that has struggled with billing pretty much my entire career, which is now about 10 years. And I have struggled with it for a long time. I would get to the end of the month and, just dread having to put it in and everything like that. And so I think I was probably doing my billing at the end of the month, and was surfing around online. And I saw one of your advertisements. I was like, are you putting in your time at the end of the month? I was like, oh, does she have a camera on me right now? So I did a little investigation, and I ended up signing up for Molly's 6-week mastery course, which she may talk a little bit about, which kind of helps you do a deep dive into some of what's holding you back from being a contemporaneous timekeeper. And I found all of the information really helpful, and it has really helped me over the past probably about 6 months with my billing. I'm definitely noticing a difference. I'm getting it in on time. I'm more accurately and descriptively describing the time and the tasks that I'm doing. And so far, knock on wood, I'm getting less pushback and less appeals that I have to do of my time entries. So I really enjoyed the course. I think Molly has a ton to teach each and every one of us. And yes, that's about it. So I'll let you take it from here, Molly. Thanks again.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie. Amazing introduction. Yes, all of us can relate to having problems with our billing, right? Like, I've also been an attorney for now almost 17 years. I still practice. I'm part-time. Let me know, you can still hear me, right?
Mhm.
This is, I just got this newer microphone. The other one wasn't so great. So you all can relate, right? We have all been attorneys. We've all been practicing for a long time. We've always had to bill, but yet there's nobody there, for most attorneys, who really taught us the skill set to bill, and also the skill set behind the billing. And that's kind of what I want to go into today, is kind of that mindset behind the billing, and how to, if you're having issues with your billing, if you're procrastinating your billing, if you're forgetting to enter your billing, if you're underbilling your time. I am going to be talking a lot today on underbilling, because this has been one of the most popular areas for especially women attorneys. who have a propensity to people please. And I will get into that in more detail later, and how that leads to a lot of underbilling and a lot of confusion at the end of the day or the end of the week or the end of the month as to why all our time isn't there, even though we've been at our desks for 9-10 hours. We only have 5 or 6 hours billed. So I'm really going to dive deep into the underbilling. But as Stephanie was saying, I also have a slew of other content around billing. I have been thinking about billing for a year, like obviously my whole career, but really applying the life coaching concepts I learned getting certified as a life coach about 3 years ago to billing and as an attorney who bills their time. So I really have taken a lot of my time thinking about it, thinking about the problems that attorneys have. Again, apologies for my voice. I'm just getting over COVID. I had it last week. So really today is kind of the first day I'm feeling better, but so apologies for my kind of a hoarse voice. But again, I spent so much time thinking about this and how I can help other attorneys to have a better billing mindset so that they can show up every day as their best selves, being a lawyer, but also capturing and counting all of that time. And for me, that means at the end of the month, not having to go back and try to figure out what I did all month, right? Not being stressed out, feeling panicked, not feeling tempted to overbill my time, right? Not like cursing the fact that I'm a lawyer and I have to bill. I'm able to do it as I go every day. What Stephanie referred to and what I refer to a lot as contemporaneous timekeeping. I do think that is the best way that you can capture and count all of your time, at least for me. So that's what I teach in, right now I do have a 6-week course, but actually I am, at the end of this program, I'll let you guys know about a new membership site that I will be launching in late October, maybe early November, that gives you access to literally all of my content, and also me every week on a weekly coaching call. So I'll tell you a little bit about that later. So you'll just get a really, really thin slice of how I can help you with your billing today, but I have tons of other materials. And if you want to follow me on LinkedIn or Instagram, I'm also on there. So you can find me there and get all sorts of other content too. So again, I'm a billing coach. I basically kind of made this up. I was struggling with my billing in different aspects, typically underbilling, sometimes feeling tempted to pad my billing, forgetting my billing, just overall being really unhappy with the fact that I had to bill, right? So many of us, right, have that same kind of like ball and chain, I call it, that's attached to our ankles every day as we go to work, because we have to capture our time every day. And all we want to do is just be a lawyer, right? We just want to like do our legal work. And yet the company we work for is forcing us to also bill for it, and bill for it in a way that is good enough to get past, right, the like billers at the the clients that we have in order for us to actually get paid. So what I do as a billing coach is I really help my clients see, and I'm going to help you see today, how to generate awareness around some of the problematic areas that you're billing in order to change it. And so what I help them see is the real reason why they're having billing problems, like the real, true, core, but for a priori cause of their billing struggles. It's not the billing, right? It's definitely not the billing itself. It's what you're making it mean on a constant basis. It's the thoughts that you're thinking about your billing, the thoughts you're thinking about what you've billed, what you need to bill, your hours billing. That's what's creating all of the stress and the struggle and all of the negative emotions that are with your billing. So I'm going to teach you the most amazing tool that you can use for the rest of your legal career and for the rest of your life. I always like to do these webinars and give you, especially people who are new to my content, I give you my biggest tool, and I'll teach it to you. It's called the model, and I'm going to teach you it. It's in that outline or that handout that you got from Stephanie. It's at the very back. So I'm going to go into it in detail in just a little bit. So again, I really want you to start to generate awareness around some of these specific billing issues that maybe you are having. Again, whether that's maybe underbilling your time, procrastinating your billing, that's a big one, just forgetting to bill your time, not prioritizing your billing, maybe potentially feeling tempted to pad your billing because you don't have enough time entered and you have a certain requirement to meet every day or every week or every month. these are issues that you're going to feel some negative emotion around. And I'm going to help you figure out what your current billing mindset is so that you can start to solve all of these issues. And again, I'll get to that amazing tool. And yeah, if you guys, the handout definitely will recirculate it so you guys get it. It's my billing beliefs workbook. And it's about 10 pages, and it really helps you to go through step by step and start to uncover your mindset around billing currently so that you can start using the tool. I'm going to teach you the model in order to start shifting that mindset so that you start to actually, if you can believe this, enjoy your billing. Promise you can. I now do. And I've taught so many of my clients and just people who have gravitated towards my content to do it as well. So yeah, that handout there. Yeah, Stephanie will send it. And then also for those of you who came and you're like, yeah, like I'm pretty good at billing, no big deal. I also sent out my billing blueprint, which is a 1-page amazing PDF with like kind of like a billing cheat sheet in a way. It gives you lots of great verbiage to use in your billing. So it really just helps you to make your time entry a lot easier. In my membership, you also get the billing blue book, which is pages and pages of narratives to help you, because some of us don't even have that. Some of us were just never shown how to bill. And I feel like billing is kind of a taboo subject around a lot of law firms. So that is why I'm here to put it out in the open, to take it out of taboo. Like you can come to me, ask me all your questions. I'm definitely going to save time at the end. I don't know how long we can go. But put any questions you have and I'll try to go through them towards the end of the presentation. So if you've been afraid to ask like a partner or even a coworker, you can always come and ask me. And you can always email me after if something comes up during this presentation and you felt maybe a little afraid to put it in the chat. Feel free to email me. Stephanie will send you that info. It's info@thebillingcoach.com, but we'll also send you that later. So feel free to send me all of your thoughts about billing. Okay. So let me see. Okay, so raise your virtual hand if you can, or just if you're sitting in your office, you don't need to turn on your screen. But if you're somebody who leaves the office without their billing entered, there's probably a lot. Raise your hand or just like silently say me if you're someone who stays up after work late to get your billing in. Or you stay up on the weekends to get your billing in, or you wait till the last minute. All right, the hands are coming up, right? It's all of us. And we kind of forget this. We feel very isolated as attorneys, thinking everybody has it figured out. Everyone's getting their billing in on time. They're not. They're definitely not. They're staying late. That's why I have so many people who are gravitating towards me, because we all are struggling with this. So I really want you to like have that knowledge that we all struggle with our billing in just very different ways. Right. And like I talked about earlier, underbilling, potentially overbilling, forgetting your billing, leaving it to the last minute, procrastinating your billing. And I just want you to know there are reasons behind it, and they're not reasons to beat yourself up about. It's how we've been socialized as attorneys, and I'll get into that in a little bit, and just how attorneys are in general. And again, like I said, most attorneys don't want to talk about billing. So how are you ever going to fix any problems you have with your billing if nobody's going to talk about it and nobody's going to help you? So that's the one thing I want you to do is just know we all struggle. All of us attorneys out there, hundreds of thousands of us are struggling with our billing. But you can now, when I teach you these tools, start to apply them and start to change, really change some of those billing habits that maybe are continuing that cycle of having problems with their billing. All right. So who else? Anyone who waits till the last minute to bill your time? Anyone who just overall thinks billing sucks? Hates billing, doesn't want to do it, wants to go in-house, wants to get away from having to get your billing done every day. I feel you. Like that's so many of us, right? Or at certain parts of our career. So I just want you to know you're definitely not alone. All right, I want to get to this because time, or billable time is wasting. Oh, also, bill this hour or however long we're in this webinar as a professional development. I want your brain to start to see that your time is really valuable, even the non-billable. Even this non-billable professional development time is still very valuable. And so I want you to have your brain start to see that. If you put that in your, I don't know if you use Intap or whatever time entry system you use, I really want you to start to actually bill for that non-billable time too, as a way to train your brain to see that all of your time is valuable, not just the billable time. And yes, your firm sees it, and we don't have to know how they take it into consideration, right, during your evaluation. This is for you. And this is for your brain, and practicing, really making sure that you're getting all that time in. So be sure to bill professional development, webinar, Molly Kremer, the billing coach. Okay, this is going to change your life. You're welcome. It changed mine. And so I'm super happy that I get to show it to you. And again, it's in the handout. So if you miss any of it, I'm just going to go over it super briefly. You can find it there. All right, the model. So the model is literally how the universe works. It's a really, really great way, especially for attorneys who love logic and love something simple, and our brains who forget a lot of things, right? We hear podcasts, we read amazing, self-help stories. And it all doesn't, at least for me, it never really clicked until I learned about the model about 3 years ago. And the model is something I learned becoming a life coach, becoming a certified life coach, and I really had to practice a lot. So I'm very, very familiar with it. I use it daily. I do daily models to generate awareness around what's going on in any area of my life, so that if I want to, I can start to change it. And like I said in the beginning, my motto has always been, you cannot change what you cannot see. So the model will help you generate awareness around what is a problem in your life that you want to start changing. So the first line of the model is the circumstance line. So you put, I'll just put it here, circumstance. So circumstances are everything external to us that are factual, that are neutral. Like in a court of law, it would be all fact-based, right? Nothing but the facts. There's no opinion, there's no judgment. So for example, billing, that is a circumstance. It is something that just exists in the world and is totally neutral. And I'll tell you why in just a minute, why it becomes not neutral. But I want you to see that the circumstance line of your model is always going to be something external that is neutral, that is fact-based, that is everything but the story you're telling about it. And then right down below is your thought line. So your thought line is just what your brain is offering to you in that moment. It's a sentence that runs through your brain about the circumstance, right? A sentence that runs through your brain about the billing, a sentence that runs through your brain about what somebody said to you, a sentence that runs through your brain about the fact that it's raining outside, right? The thought is what we're making the circumstance mean. And I will tell you, this is the most important line of the model. And yet most human beings forget about this line. Most human beings think that the circumstances are exactly what it's making them feel. And again, I'll go down to the feeling line. So F is the feeling line. Most people think that the circumstance line is just the news, right? That billing sucks, that we don't want to bill, right? That it sucks that it's raining, right? But if we take out that judgment, if we take out the thought that we're having about the circumstance, we're just left with a neutral circumstance. We're just left with the facts. That's it. So we have circumstances, we have a thought about them, and that thought actually generates a feeling in our body, a vibration in our body. What we call emotions is just the feeling that is caused by the thought that is triggered by that circumstance. So again, the circumstance, super factual. The thought is our judgments about it, our opinions about it, the sentences in our mind that our brain is offering to us. And then the feeling we have is always caused by the thought. This is very, very important. Again, so many human beings out there, so many attorneys think that the circumstance is causing the feeling, but I promise it never is. The circumstances never cause our feelings. There's always this thought line between the feeling and the circumstance. And that's why it's so important, Because we can shift that thought. We can always decide what we want to make something mean, and not in a way like we don't believe it, but in a way that I show you, that I'll show you later, how to shift those thoughts gradually so that you make the circumstance mean something that feels a little bit better. And I'll tell you right now why you do that is because our feelings drive all of our actions. And this is the A line, the action line, right? Our behaviors, or also our inactions, things that we don't do. So that feelings, what we're feeling in our bodies based on the thoughts in our brain, based on being triggered by a circumstance, drives all of our actions or inactions. And that can include actions out in the world or also the actions in your brain, like spinning on something, ruminating on something, right? Thinking in your mind on something over and over and over. Call it thought looping. I'm sure we're all familiar with this when our brain is trying to solve for something in our heads that it can't solve for. And then our actions, it's so important, create all of our results. All the results that we experience in our own lives, again, are caused by this model. And this always runs down, never goes up. It goes down, but then it always circles back so that the result that you create in your experience becomes your new circumstance. And then you get to have another thought about it. And then that thought creates a feeling in your body. And that feeling in your body drives all of your actions or inactions, which create another experience, another result for you. So knowing the model now, we use this tool to apply it to our billing. And I'm going to show you specifically how we're going to apply this to underbilling, because again, that's a problem that so many, especially female women attorneys have, is the underbilling and not understanding why. I'm going to show you why using the model. So again, model is a tool you can use to generate awareness around any issue going on in your life. So you can see usually like what the problem is. So you would put the problem in the result line, right? Like underbilled time today. I'll give you a good example. I'll put it on the board. So hopefully you can kind of see my board over here. So CTFAR, hopefully you can see that kind of. So again, you put underbill time, underbill, let's say for a day, you worked 9 hours and you only billed 5 hours. So under here, you would put underbill 3 hours, right? If you really truly showed up all day and you were doing legal tasks, right, that were billable, 9 hours of billable task, and you only have 5 hours, and you're like, what is going on? I don't understand. Right? You would put underbill 3 hours or not bill 3 hours, and you kind of work backwards, right? So we'll go up to what were the actions that you took? What was the feeling, the thought, and the circumstance? So for example, let's just take a motion that you were preparing today. Let's say you had a summary judgment motion. And the summary judgment motion, you know, factually, right? The circumstance line, the fact of it was you spent 5 hours on MSJ, right? We know that's very neutral. There's no judgment about it, right? It wasn't like, it sucks that I spent 5 hours on it. It's just 5 hours on an MSJ. Right. And the thought when you went to go bill for the 5 hours that you spent on that MSJ was something like, the client won't pay for that. Right. In our minds, it's like, it's too much. I shouldn't have spent that much time. The client's not going to pay for that. Right. Whatever the thought is that you're having about spending 5 hours, factual, reality-based hours on an MSJ. And the thought you're having is, I don't know, this is a typical one, right? The client's not going to pay for that. Or that shouldn't be too much time. That's too much time, right? And the feeling you have when you're thinking the client won't pay for that is something like defeat, right? Some kind of feeling like frustration or defeat or some vibration in your body that feels a little bad. Like, oh, it sucks. They're not going to pay for it. So the action, what typically happens in our brains when we feel a negative emotion, is our brains want to solve for it. Our brains are like, "Ooh, this feels bad. I don't like defeat." Like, Molly, get out of defeat. You don't want to feel this way. So our brains will be like, "Oh, how do I solve for feeling bad? Just cut a little bit of time. Like, you don't need to bill 5 hours. Just bill a little bit less, right? It offers me more thoughts to try to action my way out of this feeling of defeat." And my brain is very clever. It's going to say all the things to get me to action my way out of feeling this negative vibration, because my brain is just confused. My brain does not understand that it's this thought that is causing me to feel defeated. It's the thought the client won't pay for it. My brain thinks it's the 5 hours I spent on the motion. Like I said before, most people think that the circumstances cause their feelings, but that is never the case. It's always a thought you're thinking about the circumstance. And that's why the model is so important, because if you can pinpoint what this thought is, then you can start shifting the thought and not taking the action of only billing 2 hours, or let's just say 3. Let's say you give yourself a full 3 hours, right? You knock out 2 hours because your brain's like, "Oh, that's better." And immediately your brain's like, "Oh, 2 or 3 hours on an MSJ," the thought your brain's going to have is like, "Yeah, the client will pay for that." Or that's actually a pretty good amount of time. So of course you're going to have a different feeling. You're not going to feel defeated. You're going to feel, I don't know, satisfied, content, something that feels better than frustrated or defeated. Your brain's going to be like, "See, problem solved," right? But is it? Is the problem solved? Because what happens if you only bill 3 hours, right? For here, if you're billing 3, it's you underbill 2 hours. Or if you build 2 hours for the MSJ, you're underbilling 3 hours, right? Your result is actually something you don't want, right? You've underbilled that amount of time. So at the end of the day, and you're like, "Why do I only have 5 hours? I've been doing this 9 hours." Our brains will go spinning and they're like, "I don't know. You must just really suck at your job. Go work some more. Like, go figure out another way to get more time in." When instead, if you had modeled it out and seen that it was literally just this thought, the client won't pay for it, that may have just zoomed by your awareness, right? Or you just weren't even aware what you were thinking. Or again, like most people, you just think it's the 5 hours that you build that is the problem, right? The circumstance is never the problem, by the way. It's always what we're making it mean. So just an example, one little example of how it's possible to underbill 2 or 3 hours of your day just by having these thoughts, right? Okay, I'm going to go to the chat just to see. Yes, you also inadvertently set a standard for future MSJs and similar work. Yes. And you're like, "Oh, definitely it doesn't take 5 hours to do an MSJ, even though this one's super complicated. It only typically takes me 3 hours to do an MSJ." Our brain loves evidence of the past in order to support the present. It's like, "Well, it took me this long before. Maybe that was like 10 years ago as like, a first year associate. So of course it should only take me this long now." Right? It loves finding that evidence. So that's a really, really good point. Okay, so that is the model, and that is how the model works. So you can take the model and you can start to fill it in. Anytime you're confused on why you're getting a certain result that you're like, "Well, I don't understand. Why am I getting this result of only 5 hours billed today versus, 8 hours that I actually worked?" So you can actually see maybe there was underbilling. Or maybe you were actually doing something like I call non-billable buffering. Maybe you're on social media for a half hour and you didn't even know, right? You can generate awareness around that as well. But for now, I really want to stick to the underbilling because I really do feel that this is such a problem for so many women attorneys. All right. The problem, underbill your time. So how I define this is it's literally just the time you actually bill is less than the time it actually took, right? How many of you have underbilled so much time, right? Because of what you are making that amount of time mean. But if you really simplify it, this is all it is. All you're doing is just not billing for the time you spent. The facts, the circumstance is you spent this amount of time on a project or a task. And what happens is the result you create is so different. It's such a different reality than what actually happened. And I'm going to tell you, whoops, why you underbill. So I kind of talked about this a little bit, right? The thought, right? And again, the reason isn't because of the 5 hours you spent. It's the thought it should have taken less time, or the client won't pay for that. And again, these thoughts zoom right past your awareness, right? And they create that feeling. And so what we want to do is really slow down. And if we can't in the moment, and if we notice at the end of the day, we have a lot less time, you can start to do your models to really understand, what were you thinking about that motion, about that email, about that deposition prep you did, right? What were some of the thoughts you were thinking? Because again, these are the problems. It's your thoughts that are the problems. No, really, thoughts are okay too, because we can start to shift them and they can actually turn into the solution. And I'll teach you that in a second. So the client won't pay for that. It should have taken less time. I need to bill less. It literally just could be that. I need to bill less. That's too much. Okay, so those are some of the reasons why. Right? So why are you really, really underbilling your time? It really goes back to people pleasing. It really does. And this is a big area of work. There are literally coaches who just coach on people pleasing. So I'm sure you've heard the phrase, or at least are kind of familiar with it, right? People pleasing is what I call, my definition of it is prioritizing the wants, the needs, the desires of other people to your detriment, right? It's prioritizing other people's needs, the client's needs, the partner's needs to your detriment. Remember, when we're thinking the thoughts, when we're thinking these thoughts, the client won't pay for that. It's because we're prioritizing the client's needs over our own need to bill for the amount of time we spend on that legal task. Instead, our brains are like, oh, no, the client's not going to pay for that. And when you're saying that, when your brain's offering you that thought, it's a people-pleasing thought, and it creates people-pleasing pain, right? That pain of feeling defeated because you're not prioritizing what the client wants. You're not prioritizing their need for less time. You're not prioritizing their need for you to do things like way quicker, right? Instead, when you are billing the amount of time you spend on the task, you are prioritizing you, and you are valuing your time, and you are not people pleasing your client. And that's okay, right? It actually feels terrible in the beginning because trust me, I've done this work a lot. It feels bad. And that's why I call it people pleasing pain, because when you want other people to like you, you want other people to be happy with you, you want other people to think a certain way about you, right? It feels painful thinking that they don't, or thinking that they're not happy with you, or that they're not going to be happy with you, right? That creates a lot of pain. So when we feel that pain in our F line, what do? Just like I said, we cut our hours. We people please. We do what they want, right? We make sure that the time is something that we think that they're going to want. Or if say it's a partner, right? And you don't want the partner to think that you took too much time on a task. The partner's going to think I'm stupid. The partner's going to think I like spent too much time on this. The partner's not going to think I'm capable enough to get an MSJ done in a certain amount of time. That is still people pleasing. It's still wanting somebody to think and feel a certain way about you, right? And it's still that people pleasing mode. Okay. Oops.
And Molly, not to interrupt, but one of the
Yeah,
things
go ahead.
that you said that really resonated with me is that you have no idea what that person is thinking. Like, they may think, oh,
Right.
well, okay, 5 hours, that's fine.
Right, exactly. We'll never know. And also, it's not our job to know. That's perfect, right? We'll really never know. They may think that way about you. And one of the solutions I'll offer you at the end is to be okay, like have other people be wrong about you, right? Allow other people to have their thoughts and feelings about you because they're going to anyway. Right? You can't stop them from thinking a certain way about you, feeling a certain way about you. Allow them to have all the thoughts and feelings they're going to have. And I like to remind myself that I like to allow them to just be wrong about me. Right? I am smart enough. I am capable enough. Yeah, this took me 5 hours, right? Like they can think I'm not smart enough. They can think I'm not capable. It's totally okay. They're wrong, right? And I know that. So you do that for yourself. And yeah, again, the client, we don't know. Like the client could pay for 5 hours, right? We have no idea. But maybe they pay for 10 hours. Again, it's not our job to figure out what they will and won't pay for. It's our job to just show up and just to bill in integrity and in confidence. And you do that by not undercutting your time, by not underbilling your time, right? And also not padding your billing, right? Because that's another source where a lot of attorneys get scared that they're not meeting the requirements. So they also pad a little on top. And that also feels terrible, right? That feels like, oh my God, what if they find out? Like what if somebody comes to me and asks me about this like big time entry, right? And that also feels really, really bad. And I also don't want you to be in that space where you're feeling tempted and actually take the action of overbilling your time. But I promise if you are billing contemporaneously, billing as you go after every legal task, you are much more likely to be more accurately billing your time than if you wait till the end of the day, the end of the week, or the end of the month to bill. That's typically when you get into a place of like, shoot, I forgot how long that took, right? And then you're just guesstimating, and that feels terrible too. All right. So yeah, again, the answer why you're underbilling is typically people pleasing. So I just want to run this real briefly. Where are we in time? Oh, gosh, we're really speeding through. So real quickly, why do we people please evolutionarily? Back in caveman days, our survival depended on us pleasing other people in our tribe. If we pissed off the elder tribesmen, we were kicked out and the tigers would eat us. So that is how we have literally evolved as human beings to make sure everybody in the tribe is happy with us. Everybody is pleased with us, right? Or else we literally die. And so in our brains, it's scary to piss people off, to make people unhappy with us. Our survival, literally our brain's amygdala starts to light up. That's why our brains get so afraid when we're not pleasing everybody, when we're not taking care of everybody. And again, especially as women, we are also socialized. So on top of the evolution, we are socialized to care so much about everybody else to our detriment. Right? We are socialized to please all the peoples before we can please ourselves. It's selfish otherwise, and we're a bad person otherwise, right? It's how we've been socialized. I go into this very in depth in one of my classes that I have, but considering time, and I want to make sure I get all your questions, I'm just going to keep going. Okay, so we kind of already talked about this, right? How does it show up in our billing? We're prioritizing their wants and needs. We're prioritizing what the client wants, the partner wants, the firm wants, right? Over our own. And also, this is huge too. We're prioritizing what we want the partners and the clients to think about us. We can't manage their minds. They have their own thoughts and feelings, right? We can try as hard as we want to in our A line, but typically when we try to please all the people, what happens is that the only person not pleased is ourselves, right? Whenever we're in people-pleasing mode, typically what happens is we please everybody else to our own detriment. So allow other people to be wrong about you. It's totally okay. And also allow them to be right about you. You can do that too. So yes, so my solution is, it's the 4 N's, I call it. So now that you've been in this presentation, you can kind of now see, you can notice maybe the next time you're tempted to go fix a feeling, right? Action your way out of feeling frustrated or defeated with the amount of time you spent on a certain legal task by underbilling. Right? You'll see it now. You'll notice it, right? The bell has been rung. You'll no longer just like underbill your time without even noticing it, because now the bell has been rung. You're in the jury box. You hear all the damning evidence. You're going to find the defendant guilty. Now you know, and especially at the end of the day, when you really do feel like you spend a ton more time working than you have billed for it, probably there's some underbilling going on, and probably it's because you are having people-pleasing thoughts, trying to please all the people but yourself. So now that you're aware of that, now you can more intentionally decide that you want to shift your thoughts. Again, not your A-line. We're not shifting any actions. We're not actioning our way out of a feeling. We're thinking our way to a better feeling place so that the action we take is to count all of our time. The action we take is to make sure we capture all of it, all the value, and that is the result we get. So in that model I had up here, and it said 5 hours spent on MSJ, your result line will be 5 hours billed for MSJ. And that is called what I call an aligned model. Your C matches your R. The reality matches your result. So many people have very different results, but the reality doesn't match, right? And especially with underbilling, the reality doesn't match. Same thing with overbilling. The reality doesn't match how much time you spent if your result line doesn't match your C line. Okay. So again, notice, you just want to notice when it's coming up, when those thoughts are coming up, you can start doing some models at the end of the day. If you have under time, that's not as much as you spent, see if you can notice some of those thoughts, even if they come up when it's time to bill. It's a great time to notice them. And I really want you to just narrate to yourself, like, okay, my brain is offering me this thought about it. I got it. My brain's always offered me this thought. It's a people-pleasing thought. I get it. It creates a sense of defeat, right? It creates me potentially actioning my way out of that defeat by underbilling, right? And just normalizing it, having some compassion for yourself. Of course, I've been socialized to people please. My evolutionary biology is to make sure everybody's happy, right? I really want you to normalize this within you, so that you can get to the fourth step, which is to start to think a next best thought. So a next best thought, again, like I talked to you about, I call them bridge thoughts. I'm willing to allow my clients and partners to have thoughts about me that are just wrong. It's totally okay that they think it's too much time. I can allow them to just be wrong about me. How is it the perfect amount of time, right? I can allow my clients and partners to just be wrong about me. It's my favorite. That's my go-to, because it really is. We're so defensive. We want them to be so happy with us, right? And we can be happy with us. We know that it spent that amount of time. We know we put in the value of 5 hours, right? We can allow them to be wrong about us if they're thinking potentially thoughts that it took us too much time. I love this one too. I never discount my valuable time. I always tell myself that when I'm super tempted to underbill my time, I'm like, no, I never discount my time. It's valuable. It's super valuable, right? I never discount it. That's a great thought to think. You put that in your T line. The feeling that will come up if you're really believing into that is confidence, right? You'll feel confident. And from confidence, you are way more likely to bill for all of that time than if you're feeling defeated or frustrated. It's possible that this is the perfect amount of time to bill. That's a great one, right? You put 5 hours for MSJ in your C line, and you put this thought in your T line. It's possible that this is the perfect amount of time to bill. And I always like to add on, how do I know that it's the perfect amount of time to bill? Because it is. It took me 5 hours, and I'm not going to argue with that reality. Unless I spent 2 hours on social media, obviously a little different. But if I really did spend that time working on this motion, I'm not going to argue with the reality of the time it took, right? Because if you're arguing with your reality, you're going to lose 100% of the time. If the reality, the C line is 5 hours, and you argue with it, it should have been less. It should be this. All the things that you're saying to yourself to try to argue your way out of that 5 hours, you're going to lose. You will lose, right? Because in your R line, if you go down to your result line, and if you believe those arguments that you make that it should have taken less time, your result will be, yes, I actually billed less time. You will create the reality of less time billed for that day. I'm always telling my clients, you create your own reality. You really do, with your thoughts. And it actually does show up in your experience. That result line for you is only 3 hours billed versus the 5 hours it took you. All right. I think that's it. Woo. Oh, we can extend past 1. Great. Okay. Let me go back. If anyone has any questions, come back in. I'm going to go all the way. Yes, Molly. All right. Let's see. Trying to find one. Did that one. One reason for underbilling, correcting assistant's mistakes repeatedly, not fair to the client. Okay, that's perfect, right? You just offered me C's and T's, right? One reason for underbilling, correcting your assistant's mistakes repeatedly, right? That adds up. But then the thought you're having about it is it's not fair to the client. And so what I would, if you were my client, I would put in my T line and your T line, not fair to the client. And in your C line is correcting. You put mistakes. I wouldn't put mistakes. I would just put correcting work, right? Because mistakes is kind of a loaded word. So I would put factually, right? Because mistakes is kind of a judgment. How do we know it's really a mistake? Maybe you think it's a mistake. I wouldn't think it's a mistake. If you ask 10 people, maybe 5 people think it's a mistake. Other people wouldn't, right? Or maybe people are like, well, that's a really big mistake. Or this one's like, actually, it's not a big mistake at all. Who cares? So again, correcting, or I would even put like changing assistance work product, right? You want to make it really factual product. Changing assistance work product, right? Took 0.5, right? 30 minutes. Say spent 30 minutes on that one, changing that assistant. Darn her for making all those mistakes, right? And then the thought you're having about it when you go to bill, you're like, ooh, 0.5, spent 30 minutes correcting her mistakes. It's not fair to the client, right? And the feeling you're going to have is, again, like some kind of like negative emotion, frustrated, defeated, kind of annoyed maybe, whatever that is for you. There's also a feelings chart in that handout, super helpful to start to be able to label your feelings. But if you don't know, if you're just like feeling bad, you can just put feeling bad, feeling agitated. I love that word. Just feeling a little agitated, right? Because you're like, it's not fair to the client. Feeling a little agitated. Your action, again, what are you going to do when you're feeling agitated? Your brain's going to want to get out of that emotion. Brains love to get away from negative emotion because, again, going back to survival days, if your brain thinks that you're in some type of danger, which a lot of brains interpret negative emotion as danger, survival brain's going to be like, get out, figure a way out of this, right? You don't want to be like, right? You don't want to be unfair to the client. You don't want to be feeling this agitation. That's dangerous, right? Take the action of not billing for it at all or underbilling, right? Or just bill a 0.2 for it or whatever it is. Probably most likely in this situation, if you're thinking it's not fair to the client, most likely it's going to be you just don't bill for it, right? And there's a half hour of your day gone, not billed for. All that value that you spent when you were changing the assistant's work product, which again, if you think about it, when you're changing, when you're fixing mistakes, you're doing that because you're adding value to that case. You're adding the value of that mistake not being found out later, right, by a court or a judge or the opposing counsel or whatever it is, right? So you're adding that value by changing it, by making revisions. And if you want to, again, find some language for how to bill for this, go back to that billing blueprint. I promise you'll find some language if you're open and curious about trying to capture this time. But again, if you're thinking it's not fair to the client, it is way more likely that you're not going to be feeling curious, right, to go and try to figure out how to bill for it. Instead, you're feeling agitated and your brain's going to say, I don't like this feeling. I want to get out of it. Don't bill for it. And then all of a sudden relief sweeps over you because then you don't have to figure out how to bill for it. You just don't bill for it, right? But strangely enough, this agitation never really goes away, right? Because you can never action your way out of a feeling. Let me repeat. You can never, ever action your way out of a feeling. As much as you think you can, that feeling still is vibrating in your body and you're just trying to distract yourself from it. You're trying to push it away. Really what you want to do is just open yourself up, allow that feeling of agitation, knowing that it's just caused by this thought in your brain. It's not fair to the client. And that thought, I promise you, is totally optional. So once you allow that feeling, maybe it kind of subsides a little bit. You do a model. You're like, okay, here's the C, right? I'm just changing some work product. What do I want to make that mean, right? I want to make it mean I'm adding value to the client, to the client's case, right? Because again, we're taking out those mistakes. We're adding value. How are you going to feel when you're thinking the thought, I'm adding value to the case? And again, what you want to do, if you had that the other thought, this isn't fair to the client, I just want you to poke some holes in it, like an attorney, right? If you're like, oh, like I'm not, or what was it? I'm sorry, I'm not, not fair to the client. Like, how is that actually not true? How is it possible that the opposite is true? I like asking myself that question too. And again, when I ask myself that question, I'm like, yeah, it's totally possible that I'm actually adding value by changing her mistakes, right? I'm adding value to this case. And when I add value, I bill for it. It's my valuable time. I'm adding value to the case. And again, when we are thinking this thought, we're more likely to be feeling confident and in integrity when we take the action of billing for it, right? And typically, if we're feeling confident, we're going to bill 0.5 for that task. And again, go to the billing blueprint if you need some helpful hints on how to bill for it, right? So confident, bill for it. And the result matches the changing assistant words product. You bill 0.5 for that task. This aligns. You have an aligned model. So again, typically what happens with our problematic models is that the result will not reflect the circumstance. So, you know, at the end of the day, if your result for billing is a lot less than the circumstance of spending, 8 hours lawyering, there's a couple of unaligned models going on. And then it's up to you to try to figure out what was going on and just go back over some of your billing and be like, okay, what was I thinking when I billed for this? Or what was I thinking during the day when I was spending 0.5 on this? Why didn't I bill for it? And you can model it out and then you can see exactly what was going on. Again, we're generating awareness so that we can change our habits, our results, so that instead of this being 0 time billed, right? We're changing that result because we've generated the awareness around what created that. And it was the thought that's not fair to my client. Okay, let's see what else. Anyone? Very helpful. Okay, editing. Yeah, editing, right? Editing. Editing assistance work product. I love it. Okay, what time? We got 5 more minutes. So let me tell you a little bit about the membership. Or do you have a question, Stephanie? You can.
I did, but please go ahead and talk about the membership first.
Just real quick. Yeah. So what I've been doing the last year is really just like creating content around billing. I have tons of content around procrastinating your billing. I didn't get to that today, but man, there are lots of models that are going on that are leading you to the action of procrastinating. And so I work with a lot of clients on cleaning that up and getting into more alignment so that they can bill their time contemporaneously. I also didn't get to your relationship with billing, how crucial it is to start to uncover what your relationship with billing is so that you can start to change it, because our relationships with anything, person, place, or thing, is just our thoughts about that person, place, or thing. And with the model, now you can see you always have control. You always have your power in your thoughts. You can always shift those thoughts to create a different result, a different relationship with anybody. Right? Your billing, your partner at home, your coworkers, right? It really is just you cleaning up your models that you have around certain people, about your billing, right? About anything. You can change all of it. And so that's actually in that worksheet that I gave you guys. But I have so many other areas that we work on. The bill padding, it's a huge one. Nobody's talking about it. And I love talking about things that nobody's talking about. All the shame that so many attorneys feel if they do feel tempted and actually do pad their billing. I love talking about that and helping attorneys to get out of that. Usually those are my attorneys who wait till the end of the month to bill, because at that point, how the hell are you going to figure out what you did all month? And the guesstimates are wild when you're trying to figure out time frame. But there's so much shame that just keeps recirculating over and over. And it's really hard for those attorneys to get out of that shame spiral. But I help them do it with the model and the other tools. So the membership, which again, I'm going to be launching, if you follow me on LinkedIn or Instagram at the Billing Coach, you'll see when I'll launch it. It's underway. I have my people working on it. But what it's basically going to be is you get access to all my content, all of my classes. I have the course that Stephanie talked about. It's all recorded. I have tons of office hours recordings. I have all of my previous master classes. I have about 10 master classes I've given on different topics. All of my worksheets. I have tons of worksheets. I love worksheets, workbooks, all the things. It's all going to be available. And then every week I'm going to do a Friday office hours where people can come on and get coached live, and or just put questions in the chat, and I'll answer the questions live. And you'll have that every week. And I'm still kind of figuring out what else I want to offer. But it's the course itself or the membership, just putting out a number that's going to be so easy and no brainer for people to do. I'm just going to tell you it's $395 for the whole year. You get $395 and that's the whole year, and you get access to the membership, everything in it, and that's it. And you can ask your firm to reimburse you if you are feeling up to that. I have some people, some clients still who haven't worked up the nerve because there still is a lot of shame around billing. And like I said in the beginning, we all struggle, right? And if your firm were like, yes, you need some help billing 100%. I do have some firms that actually do pay and get reimbursed. They reimburse some of my clients. So that will be available soon. And again, just follow me to see when that's going to be launching. And that's about it. And you can always just reach out to me, info@theBillingCoach. I'm more than happy to help you with anything that came up during this webinar or anything at all that's going on with your billing.
Great. Thank you so much, Molly. We really appreciate it. If anybody has just one or two quick questions, we can address them. I don't know if there might be some in the chat. But I did put your LinkedIn link in the chat.
Oh, good.
And another link to the Women Lawyers Association of Michigan website where you can join and get access to great content like this in person and online. Does anybody have any questions? You can either shout it out or put it in the chat. Katie, it looks like you.
Yeah, Molly, this was fantastic. And thank you so much. I feel like I too have been doing this for 10 years, and I look at my numbers at the end of each month and I say either yay or nay, and we can do more. We can always do more, right?
Yeah.
My question is on the back end. Do you also in your coaching talk about invoices? Because on one hand, our attorneys are inputting the data and how much they've worked. On the back end, when we have clients, sometimes I look at the bill and I find myself like writing off time, and I'm undervaluing, I think, my own work. So do you get into that as well? The invoicing clients?
So it is interesting. I have had a lot of partner clients lately. And so they call it pro formas. I don't know what you call it at your firm, but usually it's this time of the month, right? Where you have to review all the pro formas of not just you, but like your attorneys that you're supervising. And oh my gosh, does the mind go a little crazy during that, right? Because you see it. It's just all right there, and your brain will offer you all the thoughts. So what I want you to do is just to notice what's coming up, right? And just know that you always have the opportunity to decide whether you do want to cut that time. If you decide that you are happy with the thought and the feeling, or if it really is creating, you're like, oh, this is just like my brain being like, they won't pay for it. Right? You still get to decide. So yes, so invoices, you can literally put that again in your C line. Right? The invoice or whatever it is. You can do that as a whole. Like, what do you think about the whole process of doing invoices? Probably not great. It's probably something that you have a relationship with that is a little, right? Like, I hate to do invoices at the end of the month. I hate that I have to spend all this time doing it. This is a waste of my time. So even that leading into doing the actual invoicing is not serving you and is making it harder to actually get that time done. Because again, when we're feeling negative emotion about something like reviewing pro formas, reviewing invoicing, right? We're going to feel that negative emotion and our brains are going to be like, let's just do something else. Let's just go do something over here. Let's go scroll social media, or we'll do it later. That's the thought, right? I'll do it later. I'll get to it later. Or if you do resist and push your way into doing it, you're already in this space of like, agitation, frustration, again, feeling that. And so more and more thoughts will match that feeling as you're going through the invoices. So what I think is helpful for you to do is the next time you start reviewing invoices, just start noting on a piece of paper, like, what are the thoughts? What's coming up after you look at an invoice? Because again, it's just however much time billed. you get like whatever thought comes up for you, what are you making it mean? It's going to have a feeling, right? You're going to create a feeling and then you're going to take an action, whether that is cutting the time, right? Or leaving it alone. It's going to depend on what's the thought. What are you making it mean? And again, like we had that example of like, what would the client, obviously the client won't pay for it, or
The thoughts that you wrote there in the bridge are
yeah,
resonating in the invoices too. Like I can
yeah,
allow my client to have a different opinion on how long this
totally.
took.
Yeah. And again, if
And
you
now
are contemporaneously billing and if it's your time, right? And you billed, let's say 2 hours for something, and now you're going back and looking at the invoice and you're like, ooh, client's probably not going to pay for that. Right. And you're like, no, like sometimes what you got to just do is cringe and count it. I have that method too.
count
You
it.
just got to cringe through the feeling and count it anyway. And let's just say they do. Let's go to the place where your client's pissed and they're like, that's too much time. Oh my God, you're so stupid. Or, all that obviously it doesn't get that much, but they'll come back to you and maybe they call you and they're like, what is this about? And then you could be like, yes, I remember this. This was on whatever. If you're contemporaneously billing and you're showing up in integrity and billing all your time, you're going to come to the client in that same energy, that same confidence, that same integrity. And you can tell them exactly why you billed that amount. It took me this long. And they still could say, well, it's too much and write it off, but you'll never know otherwise. If you write it off yourself, right? That conversation will never take place because again, that conversation is kind of scary too. And our brains are like, I don't want that conversation. That's a scary
No,
conversation, but
partner in
allowing your
science,
voice
sovereign
to
might be.
know.
So thank you so much. This
Yeah.
is all really
Oh,
helpful.
you're welcome.
I'm
You're
recommending
welcome.
this
Yeah.
to all of our associates and partners.
And we
Yeah.
do
All
have
the
one other
things.
question in the chat.
Oh,
What
yeah.
are some good/low cost billing programs? I think that means the software to help you bill. I wish there was one that just automatically
Oh,
put in all my
yeah.
time,
I know,
but
right. Yeah, and that's so funny. So it's what I mostly teach on is the T line of the model. So the A line of the model, I do offer a lot of like great ways to bill, examples and narratives of how to bill, all the things, because I've worked on my mindset around billing and got really curious about how I could capture this time. And so that's what I offer also in that membership. But I don't like to coach on that A line because I don't know what you need to do. You can only tell yourself what you need to do. I don't know what any of my clients, what the proper A line is. It's always up to them to figure it out for themselves because it's their thoughts, it's their feelings. I don't want to ever interject what I think into them. I'll offer thoughts that are suggestive, of course, but they ultimately get to decide whether they want to accept or reject the thoughts that I'm offering, right? Because it's their brain. They're going to think the way they want to think and feel the way, right? Those thoughts are making them feel. So yeah, for billing software, our firm uses Intap, and I think it's fantastic. I don't know, there are different billing softwares out there. But yeah, and billing, I've thought I have about billing is sometimes it's tedious, right? But again, that thought I continually work at because I know when I'm thinking this is tedious, I'm feeling kind of, again, a little agitated, maybe a little frustrated. And I know when I'm feeling that way, my brain feels tempted to go do something else, to not do the billing, to procrastinate the billing, to get away from the billing, because my brain thinks that billing is the problem when it's really the thought, this is tedious. So I hope that's helpful.
definitely. So
Yeah.
we'll wrap up here unless anybody has any other quick questions. We can maybe take one more, but I put your email and your LinkedIn link in the chat. If anybody does have any questions, you have my email, you can send them to me, you can send them to Molly. And of course, if you have any questions about the membership, obviously let Molly know. It seems like a really good value, especially, I went through the 6-week training, and this seems like an even better value.
Yeah, it is. I'm not gonna lie, Stephanie, but you are in it as well. So you'll have it as well. Yeah.
Nice.
But yes, I'm just adding more value. I like to over deliver and just over deliver.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for taking
Yeah.
your time today to do this. And again, if anybody has any questions, let one of us know. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great
Thanks,
rest of your
everyone.
afternoon. Thanks again,
Bye,
Molly.
everyone. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye.